What is the most idiotic office policy you've seen suggested and or implemented? In my office, they've decided to make us wear pins that have a giant eye on them. That's all, just an eye. We're supposed to wear them to see if anyone asks what the eye is for. The eye isn't actually for anything specific. We're supposed to make up positive I words on the spot. I crap you not. Somehow, our motto is whatever we make up as long as it starts with I. I think this is retarded. 2 jobs ago, it's the middle of summer, during a heat wave. Our office building is 4 floors high, an old building that just soaks up the heat. No central air. Each office is equipped with a crappy, ancient air conditioner. They do the job okay, but not great. So we have customers coming in, going up to the 2nd floor to be counseled, and they each leave complaining about how warm it is in the building. The branch manager sends out a memo. Everyone on the 1st floor is now required to keep their doors open for the summer. Her idea was that, since cold air rises, it will make the upper floors cooler. Implemented equals yes. That's the same principle that keeps those cold air balloons flying. I used to work at a place that had so many idiotic policies I've forgotten half of them, but this one comes to mind. Once, they decided that they needed to keep tabs on employees' productivity. It was essential apparently that the company owner be informed every hour on the hour of what each of the 70+ employees had accomplished. To ensure that this could be achieved, said company owner assigned 6 people to check up on everyone. No, they were not assigned a certain portion of the employees to check on. Every one of the 6 people was assigned to check on all of the employees. So employees had to report their progress 6 times every hour for 8 or more hours per day. Production ceased. I had a boss who wanted to implement a $3 charge for any typing or other error made, although I was his entire office staff and did all sales, typing of invoices for hundreds of customers a month. I quit. Reply that you'll happily pay a penalty of $3 for any error above the average for others in your position, as long as you get a $3 bonus for every error you avoid versus that average. Boss, you know how other websites have music play when you go to them? Is it possible for me? Number. We're not doing that. Boss, why not? Me. We're a company that works in the construction trades. When I send email to a certain coworker, a friend of the boss, he demands I also print out a copy of the email and place it in his mailbox. This way he can read the printed email before he decides if he wants to read the emailed email. Request he puts a printed read receipt in your mailbox. Actually implemented at my old job was that a man and a woman could not ride in the car together alone on the way to a meeting, lunch or other work function. What happens in the car stays in the car. For the sake of the story, my name is Danny and I work at the Ziz Corporation. I told my boss that our @AOL.com email addresses were a little embarrassing. I suggested we get business addresses, like Danny@Ziz.com or Danny@Ziz.org. He said he'd work on it. After a few weeks, he issued new email addresses to everyone. I'm now able to be reached at, you guessed it, Danny@AOL.com. How not to perform a general layoff. One day the company decided to let a bunch of people go. What they did was to use the PA system to call each person to the conference room. After a couple people went in, the secret was out. From that point forward, if you heard your name on the PA, you and everybody else knew it was Bootsville. And no, I was never called, but a couple good friends were. We regret to announce the following layoffs, in alphabetical order. Simpson, Homer, that is all. Our office had a no pooping policy. Seriously, we all got a memo from our boss and there was a notice tacked up in our bathroom. The only bathroom was close to where we all worked and someone complained about noxious smells interfering with their work. The letter was hilarious because my manager kept trying to use official sounding euphemisms for poop. I guess if you really had to go then you would have to find another bathroom. Where MISO works, they've implemented a raffle ticket system. Each morning when one arrives at work, you receive 3 raffle tickets each. At the end of every day there is a raffle. Usually the prize is sweets, food etc. However, every time you leave your desk during the day, to pee, smoke, get water, stretch your legs, kill a dog, any reason, you lose a raffle ticket. so those who stay at their desks all day long are more likely to win. Oh, and also, you have to put your hand up and ask for permission to go to the toilet. You have to put your hand up and ask for permission to go to the toilet. That's freaking infantile. I feel sorry for you. So no adult should have to put up with crap like that. Inter-office email is strictly prohibited. We could all use the exercise. So basically, when I ask a co-worker to do something, and it fails to happen, there is no electronic record of it. I email people for this exact reason. Documentation. I worked in the supply room, and we had to lock up whenever we left. Fine. Then the bosses decided to hand out keys to most of the employees so they could get in when we weren't there. They could never understand why the hard inventory count never matched what was in the computer. They made us take all documents, including family pictures and work-related documents, from our cube walls. Yup, frickin' clean desk policy. When I worked at a local library, the new management that was put there to clean up the place, make old management to quit, retire, banned its staff from reading magazines, somewhat understandable, and books during slow times. We're talking when there are no lines and all library is pretty much empty. So in short, if you worked in that library, you were not allowed to read. There will be no origami foldings in the office. Happened after I turned an old build sheet on extra large paper into a very large crane. The boss came by, smashed it, demanded to know who did it. Co-worker covered thankfully, and sent an email to the entire department informing us that paper cranes were strictly prohibited. This policy makes perfect sense. Once I was working on a skyscraper construction site. Someone folded a crane out of paper. One of the crane operators grabbed it in the morning instead of a real crane. Needless to say, when he lifted his first 20-ton bar into position, it came crashing down, killing about 10 people. I used to work at a call center, surveys, collections, etc. The IT department instituted a policy wherein all computers must be locked when not in use. To help enforce this policy, after 5 minutes of inactivity, all computers automatically lock. Meanwhile, on the call center floor, the director decided it would be a good use of money to buy 2 plasma TVs to hang on the wall, ostensibly so the agents can see how many calls are waiting on hold, but mostly to look pretty when clients visit. These televisions are connected to computers that automatically lock every 5 minutes. My cubicle happened to be on the other side of a wall from one of these televisions, so the computer for this television was in my cubicle, with a mouse and keyboard. No screen. I was told my job duties now included shaking the mouse at least once every 5 minutes. I may have successfully shaken the mouse as many as 3 times total. For about a week, every 15 minutes the call center director would barge into my cubicle, shake the mouse, and bang out the password on the keyboard, and leave. After that, they bought a cordless keyboard mouse and gave someone who could see the screen the mouse shaking job. To the best of my knowledge, there is still someone whose job includes dropping what they are doing and shaking a mouse 12 times an hour. Tip: take off your watch and put it under the mouse. The second hand ticking around will register a tiny movement in the mouse's optical sensor. Our office dress code changes every month or so, based on whatever this one fairly attractive girl wears. The old ladies that manage the office end up banning anything that looks attractive on her, even if they wear the same types of clothing at times. We are getting too many complaints on the corp complaint line. Stop giving the customers the number. Please sleep faster. We need the pillows. If you need a calculator, you have to buy it yourself. It's not considered an office supply, said to our warehouse manager. Yeah, let's make him do math in his head and F up inventory. $5 is just too much money. One office I worked in has a separate blocked off section for HR. While not unusual, this section locked from the inside, and no non-HR person had access. When I asked why this was, they told me it was because they wanted to make sure people did not ask HR too many questions on office policy. One place I worked, which shall remain nameless, had a whole section of the office that was locked after hours. Only they were half walls. Not so much an idiotic policy, but my dad managed a 2-way radio shop for a city, and required that if any of his employees were late, mostly more than 15 minutes, they had to stop and get donuts for everyone else. Like, When they're already 20 minutes late, they knew to stop at the grocery and get a box of donuts. They brought in donuts, and he for the most part didn't do write-ups for people being late. Seems like a good policy to me, except that one guy, who always was late, and knew he always would be, so he just kept a box of the cheaper day-old donuts in his car, and brought in donuts about every day. I used to work at a movie theater with only one screen. Old school. Between movies we didn't have much we could do, so we'd clean our little snack area, clean the bathrooms, and monitor the projector, then kind of wait around for the movie to end. The boss one day suggested that of the 3 staff members, 2 would be sent home while the movie was playing, then they would come back 15 minutes before it would end. They would obviously have to clock out when they went home. I laughed in her face. Another one, but not a policy. At one of my retail jobs there were cameras installed, and a few employees got in trouble for standing at the counter for too long. There were no customers in the store, but we needed to always be doing something. Management watched the video footage and wrote down warnings for the employees that were standing around. Now all employees stay in the camera blind spots. We had to get rid of all plants because they fired a lot of the maintenance staff to save costs. We were prohibited from using the company's water to keep the plants alive. Also, all the washroom lights are on timers, so when you're in the middle of a decent crap, you have to finish in the dark. They turn off after about 30 seconds. I worked in a place with timers on the toilet lights, but they worked on motion sensors. Yeah, motion. To crap with the light on you had to flail your hands in the air like you were on fire. We had an issue with an infected USB flash drive once. So the office responded by closing all of the USB ports on all the computers with super glue. Genius. Tube of super glue is cheaper than software, I guess. Kind of on the same subject, we had a cheerleader type morale booster meeting, and at the end of it the VP said he had a special treat for us, upon which he brought out a container of Kool-Aid and proceeded to mix us all a batch of Kool-Aid so that we could drink the Kool-Aid. TLDR. Kool-Aid. Having to re-interview for my job that I interviewed for and got a few years ago because they changed my job title to give me a raise because they like my work. They told me I would get the job and they love me, but because it is a government job they have to interview for the new position. So here they interviewed other people and got their hopes up only to hire me again. My graduate school professor just told me a story of a health insurance company who decided to outsource and offshore their work to a company in India. Apparently they were handling their IT work. A few months in, the insurance company had some kind of huge volume of electronic files to process or be placed into a database. Anyways, after getting a huge bulkload of work, the company in India said this was too much work for the amount of money you guys are paying us. We're going to have to charge you double our rate. The company said no, we have a contract. It's binding, so you'll learn to deal. The Indian company said fine, we'll just upload all these private insurance and health documents all over the internet then. The American company reminds them that according to HIPAA laws, they aren't allowed to do that. The Indian then promptly reminds the insurance company that there is no HIPAA in India. Having to come dressed to work in a suit when you work in a cubicle and have little contact with anyone else throughout the day. I'm with ya. However, I was denied a job at a Pizza Hut call center for whatever reason, probably overqualified, but looking through the premises I noticed people in pajamas, sweatpants, and bunny slippers. It was like they weren't even trying. I'll try to keep this short. Got stuck editing our exhaustive 100-page long emergency procedures manual. It's alphabetical. I put zombie attack on it, wrote up an entire procedure, then put this is a satirical situation designed to test if you are actually reading this manual. If you read this, you are required to inform your supervisor you have done so. My boss okayed, didn't say anything. The safety subcommittee okayed it, didn't say anything. It was passed at the annual general meeting by over 50 people who had 3 months to read it. No one said a word. I haven't worked there in 3 years and I'm positive it's still in there. That is freaking inspired. I'm sure I can find a reason to use it. I used to work for a cable company in central Alberta, Canada that rhymes with shore. About 3 years ago all the security cameras were removed from the building and parking lot where we stored all the company vehicles overnight. because some employee felt that Big Brother was watching. The first night they removed them, 3 vehicles, including my personal vehicle, were broken into. I worked at a company where I would frequently be sending my boss files for review via email. These were often Word documents. She requested that I personally print them on the office printer, in the middle of the wing, far from my room, and bring them to her for review. She had a printer literally 6 inches away from her monitor, which she frequently used. Yet she would call me on the phone and make me get up, walk across the entire office, and hand her the document after I had already emailed it to her. Power tripping at its finest. Network her printer then printed from her printer. IE6 as the only internet browser available. Pro tip: you don't need admin privileges to install Chrome. Obviously, your mileage may vary based on how good strict your admins are, and even if it works this may violate your IT agreement, so read the below comments and proceed with caution. Salary employees being required to clock in and out each day. Last job, we had a meeting and my boss, I use that term loosely, said that in order to save the company money the staff needed to run in the halls to get where we were going faster. Freaking brilliant. Where I used to work we would go through a case of paper in a week. This was too much paper, the boss said, so every time we needed a ream we had to sign one out with the office manager. Meanwhile in the warehouse thousands of dollars worth of company merchandise was left out in the open. Best part is about 2 years after I left one guy was arrested for embezzlement. He was taking items little by little for years and then selling them on his own. Great job management. I got it one piece at a time and it didn't cost me a dime. You'll love this one, guys. I used to be in the US Air Force, stationed at Cali AFB in San Antonio, TX. Our building was on a remote section of the base with a lawn outside that regularly needed watering. We were to start the sprinkler every day at 3 PM and run it for 2 hours daily no matter what. Unfortunately, this also applied to when rain was pouring down outside. So, imagine running outside in the pouring rain to start a series of water sprinklers and then running back out 2 hours later again in the rain to turn it off. And this continued after we pointed out the absurdity of it all. Those days of youth. This isn't a policy as such, but definitely the most idiotic thing I've have said to me in an office. I was working a seasonal data input job one summer around 1997 to 1998. Can't remember exactly. Pallets of apples went to the warehouse, were scanned on arrival and departure, and our job at the office was to update all this. There were 3 of us temps there doing this, and the monitors were at such a small resolution that the database app would only show 13 rows at a time. We were only allowed to copy the 13 that were on screen and shift them to the next screen. Me being bored one day upped the resolution to 1600 something and could fit about 60 rows on screen. Showed the other 2 temps how to do this and smashed through our work. So we all got chewed out for this. Only 13 rows at a time or we won't have enough work to keep us busy. I was clerking once and a managing partner made sure everyone received a stack of peel and stick labels to wear daily. Those "Hi, my name is" labels. This was supposedly to ensure that all of the senior partners knew the clerks' names, which they did without trouble. It was really for him, and it never worked because he never once caught on to us changing the names on our labels every day. I was even Bob for a few days. I'm not sure, but I'm making you a girl person in my head to make this story even funnier. A UK-based company I worked for a few years back decided it needed to cut costs. Rather than starting small scale, it decided to offshore its IT and marketing departments to South Africa, where the owners came from and we already had a small office. They announced this to us in May and immediately laid off half the IT department. Myself and other senior developers were kept on to ensure a smooth handover. They felt the move would be over by the end of July and we'd all be working elsewhere. However, in order to stop us from walking straight away, they offered to pay us extra for those 2 months. We said we didn't think they could perform the move that fast, but they were sure they could. Our IT manager headed straight out to SAR to start setting things up, leaving the department pretty much unwatched. Productivity died. It became a competition to see who could take the longest lunches. A friend and I got almost 4 hours. We went to the cinema and the pub. Sure enough, the end of July rolls round and no end is in sight. We're offered a 2-month extension on the increased pay. Also 3 of us are picked to go to SA in August to train our replacements. 2 weeks later I arrive out there to find my replacement is yet to be hired. After a month of interviews we find someone but they can't start for another month. I head back to the UK for that month before flying back out to SA for another 5-week stint. Being paid UK wages whilst working in SA for 10 weeks was an absolute riot. In the end I finish up my job at the start of December. 4 months later than planned. A lot fatter and a lot richer. TLDR. Awful management at my company spent a fortune trying to save money, but I had a great time. As per regional direction, we will remove Mozilla Firefox from all XXX systems effective today. The software isn't supported due to various security vulnerabilities which present a security risk to the network. On XXX all installations of Mozilla products will be uninstalled from all workstations and laptops that have Firefox as an optional internet browser. To ensure that all Mozilla favorites and settings are transferred to Internet Explorer, we've provided the attached instructions. Please make sure the transfer is complete by Thursday as this information will be lost upon uninstall. As a reminder, all users who are using XXX6X and XXX are only authorized to use Internet 6. If you are using Lotus Note 7X you may use Internet Explorer 7. At this time, Internet Explorer 8 is not supported on the XXX network and systems found with this package will have the browser removed and replaced with the appropriate browser. Please be advised that Internet Explorer is the only support browser on the XXX network. Last time I read that, the shared printer was spewing out resumes. Every chair must be kept at the same height as the boss's chair. Never mind the other 5 people this affects are 6-8 inches taller than said boss. This is for the 5 minutes a month the boss might have to use your kiosk. I'm going to develop a back problem. Ergonomics lawsuit in the making. I worked for a company where my primary job was to feed athletes on an extended bicycle tour. I was not allowed to socialize with the athletes, but I was not allowed to tell them that I was not allowed to socialize with them. We shared campgrounds and were essentially exposed to each other in close quarters for upwards of 10 hours a day. I am a friendly guy too. My manager was with us and watched us like a hawk. If we were asked questions we were to dodge them. If we were asked to go into town for a group event or for a drink or to go to a restaurant, on a day off, we were to lie and say we were doing something else. My manager yelled at me on an almost daily basis for something as simple as maintaining a dialogue of small talk. Most people figured out on their own this ridiculous policy, and most people who did figure it out said they want to be coming back to do another tour with our company. For some weird tax quota reason, an office I did temp work for a few years ago had a bird as an employee, literally a parrot, in a cage, in a cubicle. In accordance with whatever policy was in place, it had its own email address at companyname.com, and someone made it business cards as a joke. The boss always got really edgy when people brought it up, and tried to laugh it off in between deliberately complicated explanations. Yeah, I once knew a guy who had to spend a year dead for tax reasons. Print all emails then fricking file them. They're easier to search that way. This thread is a scam perpetrated by Scott Adams, looking for new material. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.